this election could genuinely help determine the future of the country. And some of you are like already kind of scratching your heads. Didn't hear about this election. Sounds a bit hyperbolic. It really genuinely could. This is about partly the future direction of Labour. They're the party in power. Some of you might have missed that, given some of their policies. Labour was set up by the trade unions to give working people a political voice. And these unions are supposed to have a key say in the sorts of policies that Labour comes up with. Unions are also crucial, of course, for fighting for the interests of members in their communities, in their workplaces. And Unison is one of the main unions of the country. My dad was a former Unison shop steward, so this is, I guess, it hits close to home. This election is about the general secretary of Unison. That's the leader of Unison. And they will become one of the most powerful figures representing working people in the country and have a big say on how Unison fights for their members and the sorts of policies and pressure that is put on Labour in government. Andrea Egan is a shop steward, like my late father was. She'd be the first from the membership ranks to become General Secretary of Unison. Andrea, it's great to speak to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. And thanks for having me. It's
an honour, honestly. Just firstly, I mean, just before I ask you about you, I mean, a lot of people will just, because Unison it should have a big role in the sorts of policies that Labour comes up with. How would you judge how Labour's doing, and maybe what are your misgivings about how Unison at the moment are kind of approaching Labour?
So let me start by saying that I am so bitterly disappointed with Labour, as I've been a Labour member for many years. Before, I'm not a Labour member now, but I've been one for many years. And it is a disappointment at the moment that working class people were crying out for change after 15 years of austerity imposed, a political choice imposed by the Tories. So when Labour came along and got into government, I think there was a lot of hope by working class people, certainly our members in Unison, that Labour would bring about some changes that would impact much more positively on their lives, whether that be by the pay, the terms and the conditions and the jobs, or the environments in which they live, the communities in which they live. And they've absolutely failed to do that on so many levels. We are affiliated to the Labour Party, but not wholly affiliated. So that just means there's a percentage of our members that choose to join the Labour link.
And at the moment, I mean, Unison, and people, this gets demonised because the media doesn't explain what trade unions are. You get this kind of sometimes attempt to equate union money and union political involvement with big businesses. Big businesses are top-down, undemocratic things which exist to make profit for very rich people. Trade unions are democratic membership organisations, the biggest democratic membership, biggest democratic movement of the country, but they're supposed to have influence. How do you think, I mean, what kind of influence could Unison be using now to make things better which they're not doing, which, as I said, could help change the country?
So I think you've just hit on a key thing, that the union should be a democratic, it's a member-led union, and decisions that are made by members at conference should be enacted. And I think one of the problems that we're suffering from at the moment, and one of the reasons why I'm standing, is that it feels like the leadership, so this top-down leadership of the union, is being subservient to Labour and are not calling them out for the absolute disgraceful positions they've been taking. And actually, they are not. Unison's policy should come first when our leadership talk on behalf of 1.3 million members. And that isn't happening right now. Things such as the PIP, even the Supreme Court ruling, where we could have had a real strong voice, the white paper on migration, the attacks on our pensioners, our Unison retired members on the winter fuel allowance. We should have been much stronger. That should be our position of 1.3 million members, speaking from the leadership to say to the government, this is not on, we're not having it. We're not, we will not tolerate this, and we'll fight on it. And actually,
so on that, you become general secretary. You've got, you have a little celebration, but then bam, you're going to go to work with the government. What are the three big things that these are the big fights that I'm going to, on domestic issues, that I'm going to fight the government on?
So the big domestic issues are about insourcing, a real opportunity to insource the services that we've seen outsourced to private companies. The Employment Rights Bill, it has brought, it brings some, but it brings more, it's brought decent employment rights, but more of an individual basis. I would actually be fighting for Employment Rights Bill number 2, phase 2, and let's get our teeth straightened to that. We didn't get the collective bargaining, sectorial bargaining that we wanted. We wanted
like in Scandinavia. So in Scandinavia, you get where living standards are better, inequality is lower, and that's where workers are covered by these collective agreements where bosses have to negotiate with them on a collective level.
Yeah, so we need to strengthen. It's a move in the right direction, the Employment Rights Bill, but it doesn't go far enough, and we need to be campaigning now for phase 2. But as I said, the big issue is the insourcing. We have seen all our public services, whether that's from your trust, your health services, your local authorities, our police, justice, and CAFCAS. Water, energy and transport, all outsourced. And there are big challenges at the moment in our workplaces, challenging bosses when they keep coming, telling us they want more cuts and they want to attack the terms and conditions of our members. But what we also know is those services are offering the systems are broken. You'll have to talk to our local teaching assistants in schools who are bringing their own things into school to help the kids in school. All the systems are broken. So what we need to call for, one of the first things I want to do is not only the insourcing, but it has to be proper funding for all these services. And at the moment, the Labour Party are playing lip service to that. Our members, our communities need decent services now.
Before I ask you about you, I just want to ask you about the far right, because they're really on the march at the moment. And if we're honest, they're making inroads. I don't want to generalize a bit, because I think a lot of the media, there's this kind of shtick of they hear someone with right-wing opinions who's a middle-aged man with a northern accent, regardless of who they are, and be like, this is the voice of the working class. And that's not true. There's lots of working class people who are, for one thing, from different backgrounds, but also despise the far right. So it's just, I think, important to say that. But there is a danger of the far right making inroads, including amongst some Unison members. So what's your experience of dealing with the far right? I mean, why do you think the far right are rising, and how do we take them on based on your experience?
So we felt that consequence. We've got 10 of our Unison branches that now have got reform, who are controlling their councils, as well as a couple of authorities that have got mayors that are now reform. And sadly, some of our members will have been those that put a cross on the ballot box to elect them. Now, many years ago, I think it would have been much clearer for us as trade unionists to challenge racism in the workplace. But unfortunately, when you've got politicians that are talking in that vein, I think those discussions, those political discussions with members and communities need to be, but they need to be had, but they need to be there, and we need to, many years we just call out racism, and I think it's become quite a complex situation, because you can't just challenge somebody and say, oh, you're being racist, because I think you're just going to... There's so much distrust at the moment with the political parties. And I think, for me, reform is saying what people want to hear, and that is that we'll make things better. And then what they see on the media, on TV, is, stop the boats. That's the big issue. Stop the boats. And people, when you talk to them, when I talk to family members, people in the community and membership, they don't realise that even the political party at the minute, Reform, that is saying, oh, we'll stop the boats. Behind all that, what they also want to stop is free NHS services. They want to privatise whatever public services we've got. But people are so desperate. When you've got children who can't access decent education, or the first choice of education, or they can't leave home to get in their own first house, it becomes the blame game. And I think the government and capitalism for many years have been able to badge that up perfectly, and so that we fight amongst ourselves. And what people don't realise is it is the absolute lack of funding to those public services, grandparents and parents wouldn't bother about immigrants coming to the country if they could have access to decent housing and decent schools, but also with decent political. With that is what we really lack in this country at the minute: decent political education. It's off the agenda. We've got a really proud history of migration coming to this country, but it is absolutely being used at the moment as a weapon. And, because people are desperate, they're happy to hear it. And so that's why it's become very complex. And so we've got a lot of work to do. We've got an awful lot of work to do, educating, but in a very positive way about, reintroducing political education about our history. And all this about claiming the flags. We all should claim the flags. They're all our flags, and we're giving way too much to the far right, where we're allowing them to wave our national flags.
I mean, it's so important what you're talking about there, just taking on the far right and how they've just been allowed to dominate because people's everyday issues and concerns are just not being addressed under this broken system. Just very lastly, give me the kind of 1 minute, this is you, my pitch, who you are and what you've done.
So I'm a working class woman from Bolton. I spent my entire 37 years in the trade union movement in Unison. I was started off low paid in the children's services in residential, then I've become a child protection social worker. And hand in hand with that, I was a trade union steward. And I see how hand in hand they go. It's about working with people who've been dealt a hand really in society, and that is often the same for our members that are being dealt a poor hand by the bosses. I think they do go hand in hand. I've been active in my union, as I said, for 37 years, and sadly, I don't think my union wields the power and the collective power of that member power that we should have. We're a union of 1.3 million members with over £200 million coming in. So I think we could be a much more force to be reckoned with. But also what we need to do is make sure that our members feel part of that trade union movement. And I feel that that's lacking. And that's lacking because the democratic decisions that they make through conference aren't always enacted. And I do think we've got a position with Labour at the minute. We have to absolutely challenge Labour. We've got to hold their feet to the fire, and by that we have to be bold and we have to be calling them out when they are selling our members and our communities down the river.
Amen to that. This is the biggest trade union in the country. What happens in this union will help determine the future of this country. This is such an important election. The ballot opens the 28th of October 2025. It runs then for another month. The result will be announced in December 2025. This would be Keir Starmer's worst nightmare, just saying, because this would, as you can hear, Andrea would not be a pliable stooge who would just do what the government says and represents the government's interest, but rather represent, as you can hear, what members want. So please like and subscribe with your thoughts and your comments. If you're a Unison member, would love to hear from you. Share the video. But Andrea, it's an honour. Honestly, thank you.
And thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Owen.
Bless you. Thank you.